welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Welcome to Turn the Page podcast. I'm Catherine, your friendly neighborhood reference librarian, and today I'm here with Keshe Chow, a best-selling author of fantasy and romance books such as The Girl with No Reflection and For No Mortal Creature. Welcome, Keshe.
Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm so excited to talk to you about your latest upcoming book, Strange Familiars, which is coming out May 19th. But before we dive into the book, do you want to tell our listeners a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I, as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm an author from Australia, but I was born in Malaysia and moved to Australia when I was 2 years old. And I'm actually, in my other life, a veterinarian. So that's kind of why I decided to write this book about magical vets.
Excellent. Yeah, your veterinary background played a heavy role in this book, which I thought was so great. I think that a lot of what some people would consider like niche interests or niche backgrounds is really what makes a lot of writers shine these days. It, sets them apart from others. And you can tell there's like such a passion for animals in this book in particular. So diving into it was wonderful.
I do love animals. It's like, I guess like my biggest passions in life are like animals and books. So being able to combine the two has just been like the biggest dream.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. 2 for 2. You got them in both for this one.
That's right.
So, how much did your veterinary background play into this book? Like, how much did it influence your decision to write Strange Familiars?
Yeah, massively so. And I guess like for the first few years of my writing career, I really shied away from writing anything veterinary related. So my first two books were very much like, second world, more epic in scope. It was very mythology based. And I guess like at the time I was really sort of like mired in day-to-day clinical work, and people would always be like, "Oh, do you write about vet stuff?" Like when they found out I was both a vet and an author. And I was like, "Oh no, like I don't write about vet stuff. Like that's just like that's like my mundane day job." But then like one day I was thinking like, oh, what if I made like the vets in a book, like not just like regular vets, like what if I made them like magical vets and they treated like really cool animals, like like Witches Familiars is one of the things I've always like thought it would be so cool to have a familiar that could talk to you, because like I talk to my cats all the time. My cat, I only have one cat at the moment, but when I've had multiple cats, I talk to my cats all the time. I talk to the cats that I treat. So it was really funny because during COVID times we had what we called contactless consults. So we only would have the cat in the consult room and the owners would stay in their cars. And so we would just have this like cat and like me in a consult room, and I'll just be like yapping away to them going like, "Oh, well, how has your day been?" And like, and I was like, if anyone was watching me, they would probably think I was absolutely unhinged because I'm just like talking away to this cat as though they can talk to me back. But yes, I've always thought like it would be so cool to have familiar animals that can talk to you. And also like, I mean, mythical creatures, like I've, written about dragons and things before. I was always like, well, I mean, if they got sick, like surely there would have to be someone who would treat them. Like that would just make sense, right? If we had a world where mythical creatures existed, like unicorns and centaurs and things, like they would probably still get hoof abscesses like horses do. So yeah, I mean, like there would have to be a way to treat them. So it kind of like really did play a lot into the way I wrote the book, because everything that I wrote with regards to the animals was really sort of extrapolated from real life experiences and from real life knowledge. And even when I was sort of like brainstorming with my husband, who is also a vet, and I was like, oh, I need sort of like, this animal to have like a disease that furthers this plot point. And he was like, oh, could it be like this magical disease? And I'm like, no. It has to be like something real. Like it has to be like something that could feasibly happen, even though it's like a magical animal. It has to be something that, feels like it's like a real, genuine, authentic like thing that could happen if like magic was actually real in our world. So yeah, so it really did play a lot into the book.
That is very cool. And I mean, I think we can all say that we talk to our animals to some extent. So no judgments for you talking to your patients. But I do love that in this book, not all of the animals, but a lot of the animals are able to talk back if they have the proper connection to their human.
Yeah,
And we see all types of familiars. We see more traditional familiars like cats, birds, dogs. We have a bearded dragon named Pudding, who is a
yeah,
pretty central point in the book. But we also have things like unicorns,
yeah.
which is fantastic. In this fantastic world that you've created, what familiar do you think you'd have?
I think that and I've thought about this a lot because it's a question I ask a lot of people as well. And ultimately, I think I would probably have a cat because I love cats. I mean, I specialized in cats. That's like my specialty in veterinary science. And as much as I would love to have, a dragon or something cool, like really cats are like so central to my life and so embedded in my life that in the end, I think if I was going to bond with any animal, it would probably be a cat. So I think I was a cat in a past life, to be honest. Like, I mean, I really like sleeping too. I like getting massages. I like laying around a lot. So
Yeah.
I feel very akin to them. So yeah, I think that it would be a cat.
Yeah, listen, if I was going to be reborn into anything, being a cat would not be a bad thing to be.
No, exactly. I sometimes look at my cat and I'm like, you do not know how lucky you have it.
Now, you said that your husband is also a vet. Um,
Yes.
did your husband or your cat inspire or have any influence on our male main character, Harrisford Briggs, or Percy the cat?
So I'll start with Percy because that's an easier question to answer. Percy actually was a bit inspired by one of my cats who passed away a few years ago. His name was Aktung and he was this fluffy black cat. And I guess when I was writing Percy, losing my cat was still a little bit raw. So I think I just kind of wrote him and sort of imagined how my cat would have spoken to me if he was alive. And he would have definitely been this like kind of arrogant, aristocratic, kind of gruff, sarcastic, but also with a heart of gold kind of cat. So his personality came about very organically because he was drawn from like what I would imagine my cat would have been like if he could talk. And so yes, that was very much inspired. As for Harrisford Briggs being from my husband, not really, because my husband and we did meet in vet school. So that was something, I guess, that like you could say was similar, but we were never really rivals. There was an aspect of my husband being more into large animals, and I was definitely like a small animal city girl. He wanted to work with cattle when he was in vet school. So he was always off in the country doing rural placements and things, but we never really had a rivalry. Like we were actually not even in the same year level. He was in the year level above. And yeah, I guess I played up the rivalry, the rivals to lovers aspect a lot for this book because yeah, my husband and I it's mostly been pretty smooth sailing. Like it doesn't really provide much material for like good fiction fodder, when you sort of like, oh yes, we got together, we moved in and everything was pretty smooth sailing. We got engaged, we got married. Like, it's just not a very interesting story. But sometimes I think that because we actually got together so early, I met him when I was like 21 in vet school and we've been together since. And I'm like, well, I think I write romance because I'm kind of living vicariously through my characters because like, I've had this one relationship for so long and I guess great. I love my husband. Like he's such a big support to me and like, I'm very happily married. But then like, I haven't had that rush of like, new love for so long. So writing about it gives me that feeling. So yeah. So it's kind of like, yes, I have had the vet school romance in real life, but it didn't really translate onto the page so much.
I mean, not for nothing. It's probably for the best. I'm very glad that there's minimal similarities between the relationship you have with your husband and the relationship between Gwen and Harrisford Briggs because they get into some things. The book starts out while Gwendolyn, and Harrisford are both in their final year at veterinary school. magical veterinary school. And similar to what you said, she deals with more smaller familiars. He deals with bigger mythical creatures. And I thought I had the plot coursed for, how the book was going to go. And pretty immediately it went, nope, we're going to go deal with corrupt corporations and dark dealings and horrible things happening. It really just took quite a turn.
It did, yes, yeah. And I think that that has been something that has been a bit divisive. Like, I think some people, like, say, when I was querying this book for agents, there were obviously like a lot of agents that really loved the way the book was, but there were some agents who were like, we would have preferred this to be like a true cozy fantasy, like for this to be just like basically James Herriot with magical talking cats. And I also had like a beta reader early on who was like, thinking that that opening scene where Gwen is saving Percy because Percy's owner wants to euthanize him, basically put him to sleep for something that she feels is treatable. And my friend who beta read was kind of like, this feels too on the nose. Like, he's like, this, like she's too much of a villain. Like, this owner is like too much of a villain. Like, you've gone too far. And I was kind of like, well, actually, like, that is a situation that as a vet, like, we encounter so often. Like, I think every single vet or vet tech or vet nurse who's read this book is like, they see those scenes and they recognize that that is actually like very real and very authentic. So I think when I sort of sat with that feedback from the agents who sort of felt like it, like they wanted it to be purely cozy, I think I was kind of like, well, that's just really not the story that I set out to tell. And people were sort of like, I've had this question before on other podcasts and other interviews, like, where or why did you sort of like bring in the magical corporation? So for context, for anyone who's listening, in this world, magic is very commodified. So basically they use magic to treat the animals, but it's very controlled by two major corporations. And so they have to buy it. They don't just get it for free. It's not just like easily, like freely accessible. And the price fluctuates like fuel prices do. And so they're very like sort of reliant on this resource that is controlled by, the higher ups, basically. And people were like, why did you sort of bring that in? And did you have to sort of like, did you make a decision to do it? And I guess like for me, that was never a decision I made. Like, that was always something that I had from the start, because when I was starting to build the world, I wanted to make it as grounded and close to our world as possible, because I wanted to basically make it feel like it was a lived in world, like it was a world that could exist feasibly. Like, if we had magic and we had magical animals, that like this is how it would be in today's modern like sort of life. And so like when I sort of started thinking about like, if magic was like existed in our world, then there's just zero way that there wouldn't have been some corporation that would have come and like commodified that resource. Like, there's just no way that we would be able to have access to magic and it not be controlled or regulated in a way that benefited corporations and not people, so, and animals. So yeah, that was kind of like something again that came in really organically. And so yeah, it sort of isn't a cozy fantasy. It's not sort of like something that is James Herriot with magical talking cats. Like, it is something that does have commentary, and it is a wider world, because yeah, this is a world that I wanted to feel real. Like, it was just basically a world that I was like, if you picked me up and put me in a world where magic existed and animals that had magic existed, what would it look like? And that's how I wrote the book.
Yeah, the magic system that you created was definitely something that I was very intrigued by. And especially the idea of magic being a resource that is sold for profit and yet is very integral. And that is the same thought that came to my head. Is like, this is like gas for a car, this is
Yes.
fuel, where
Yes.
the price fluctuates. And despite the fact that Gwendolyn needs this magic in order to fulfill her job, she's not able to access it because of funds. She's left to do some pretty drastic measures to try to work with the allotted magic source that she has left. And in that way, it feels uncomfortably real.
Yes, yes, it is, especially in right now in today's like very situation. I think it is very, very real. And I think I just wanted to make it clear that, and I think sometimes like when you're writing books, like it's very easy to fall into the like magic is just something that is like a little bit of a crutch. Like it's sort of like, every problem can be solved with magic in some of, and I've done that before. Like I've had like written books where it's like, oh, well, you write something and you're like, oh, I've written myself into a bit of a plot hole. Let's just throw magic at it and then it'll like, we can solve that. But in this book, I was very much like, no, this is like our world basically. And that can't happen. So we have to make it so that magic is a limitation. It's not like an unlimited resource where like, you can just like take it and just do whatever you want with it and it's very overpowered. Like this is actually something that is almost like a limitation to the plot. So yeah, so it was sometimes hard, to do that, but it also, gave Gwendolyn a lot of personal motivation as well, because I was that person. I was actually like the immigrant student who was a scholarship student going through my very privileged high school, who had to make do with resources that I didn't have easy access to and had to stretch them further than a lot of other people did. And so yeah, it was very real for me as well.
Yeah, I thought it was very grounded and that it did have that like real feel to it. But it was also interesting because like beyond magic being a resource or a type of energy source, it was a very interesting blending of magic and technology that I don't know if I've ever really seen anything like that before, where you have witches and wizards like purchasing spells and they are fueling high-end vehicles with magic. They are
Yeah.
paying for high-end spells that, they really shouldn't have access to, and they're depleting the amount of magic that they have in order to purchase a spell in a sense, which is very interesting. It kind of lends the question of, in this world, is magic accessible to anyone who has the funds for it?
Yes. So basically, yeah, in this world, it's basically like magic is just there. And if you can buy it, you can have it. And if you can't buy it, you can't have it. So it's kind of like, and that's why in this book, like if you are a magical vet and you rely on like, needing to use additional magic on top of the normal magic you would need to charge like your watch or charge your laptop or drive your car or whatever you need to do just to get through life, you need more than the basics to do your job, then it becomes like this additional resource that you have to sort of pay for. And I guess like probably if you were working in a veterinary clinic, like maybe the veterinary clinic would supply the magic that you needed to do your job, but she's in a school, the school, like they don't buy our textbooks, they don't buy all of our like equipment, we often have to do that ourselves when we go through university or college. So I think that's how things would work. They would sort of like, they would give you your education, but you would be the one expected to come up with the resources that you had to do to use to get through that education basically.
Yeah, I got very frustrated on Gwendolyn's behalf. I'm like, she has to do this for school. Why isn't the school giving her a stipend? Why is she having to scrounge her pockets to try and
Yeah.
buy magic that is changing price by the day? I was,
Yes.
and then again, I was like, oh, well, this is exactly what people have to deal with every day.
Yes.
And that the cost of magic and the display of like how easy it is for certain people like Harrisford Briggs to
Yeah.
access, while people like Gwendolyn Chan really have to fight and scrap to get what they can to keep going. It was a very interesting look at just aspects of classism and, things that, again, very realistic.
Yeah, yeah. And I think particularly in the UK and England, class is a huge thing there. Like it's I spent some time living there and I have friends who live there, and it's very embedded into their society just because of their very long history of a societal kind of, stratification. And so I think that it's very real. It's like if you are privileged, you just have the resources, you have the money, you can go through school much more easily, you can go through through university much more easily. Like you just have the contacts, you have the people that can help you get further. Whereas if you don't have that, you're sort of starting at this like lower baseline and you have to work so much harder to get to the same level. And so, yeah, I think that's sort of like what I wanted to demonstrate with these two characters.
You definitely do that. And I think that over the course of the book, they both, I mean, they grow, obviously. They grow individually, they grow together. But I think that they learn a lot from each other as well. Especially Gwendolyn's kind of like learning more about herself, and Harrisford is kind of learning, like, oh, I have had a silver spoon my entire
Yes.
life, and it is not
Yes.
that easy for everybody else.
Yes, yeah. I think that's the thing. Like often when you have privilege, it's not that you like necessarily like a bad person. Like it's not like you like lord it over other people or anything. You're just often not aware of that because it's really easy to not see the privilege that you have because it's just something that you're accustomed to. And it's only really once like that privilege is removed or you have someone that is holding a mirror up to that you can kind of like appreciate that privilege. And I think that goes for so many different types of privilege, whether that is like like race privilege or like gender privilege or sexuality or like ableism, like there's just so many different types of privilege that we have as people. And I have a lot of privilege that, I never really realized until like someone pointed it out or like I sort of started thinking about it. I think we all have these unconscious biases. So not just Harrisford, but obviously like he has a lot of privilege. But yeah, I think that it's just part of the character growth to slowly realize that. And some people go through life, they never realize that. But I think that most of us who, who think about these things will eventually kind of like come to an understanding about the level of privilege that we have and how that plays into our life and how we interact with society. So yeah, I think that they both do undergo growth. And I think Gwendolyn also grows as a person just in terms of, gaining confidence and things like that as well. And also realizing that, like, even though Harrisford does have privilege, like he also has his own problems and family problems and trauma to deal with. And so, yeah, they're sort of like learning about each other. And like I said, I think like that's the thing with romance is that you're sort of like almost doing like 3 character arcs because you're doing like a character arc of each main character or like love interest, but you're also having like an arc of the couple together. And so like sort of like weaving them all together can be quite tricky, but yeah.
Well, I'm very excited to see how their arc continues in the next book.
Yeah.
Strange Familiars is the first book in a duology, and that was quite the cliffhanger you left us on.
Yes. Yeah, it's actually the first time I've been allowed to write a sequel. So I've wanted to write sequels for all of my books, but I guess the nature of publishing is often that, you sort of like don't always have the ability to write exactly what you want to. So this is the first time that I had that baked in from the beginning that I was able to write a duology. And so, yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't like most of the threads do wrap up in book 1, but there is obviously like a cliffhanger that leads into book 2. But yeah, I'm sort of like writing/editing that book now with my editor. I hope that, it ends up resolving things and wrapping things up well for people because it was a process to write the sequel. Like there's obviously like a lot to process in book 2.
Mhm.
And yeah, we'll see, I guess.
Well, I wish you all the luck.
Thank
Um,
you.
I can't wait to see how things get resolved, but I guess we're going to have to wait for that a bit.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up here today, is there anything you would like to share with our listeners?
No, just that I really hope that they read and love the book. And obviously, they don't have to love the book, but I just really think that, this is a book that's written for animal lovers by an animal lover. And I think so many of us are animal lovers. So yeah, I think that's sort of my target audience. And I just hope that it finds the people who need it.
I am sure that the people who need it are going to find it, and I'm sure that anybody who finds it is going to love it and also be waiting for the sequel.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Keys, for joining us today.
Thanks for having
And
me.
Of course. And with that, it's time to close this chapter. So we'll see you soon.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.